Okay, this has been a tough video to kind of re-record. Um, Done probably, this is my 10th or 11th reshoot. Um, it's about nursing bullying, how to deal with nursing bullying. It's not so much bullying aspect. I mean, I have previous videos on it. There's lots of videos on it. How do you deal with bullying in nursing? It's very difficult. You know, let's just say it. I mean, there's two basic types that I call covert and overt. The overt bullying is pretty straightforward to prove. Someone hits you, someone shoves you, if there's witnesses, whatever. It's not he said, she said. You know, it's pretty straightforward, right? There's an assault. You know, it's not like in high school or school where they punish both victim and perpetrator. You know, this is real life. You know, you assault somebody, in most typical scenarios, they get arrested, right? And then there's charges and so on and so forth. So bullying of that nature is pretty straightforward. So I'm not going to really talk about that. The covert bullying, which also occurs in high school, is much harder to prove. It's much more difficult to pin down. And given that I've called hospitals high school on steroids many a times, because nursing, which is a dominant part of hospitals, is super dominated by women. You know, nowadays it's probably down to 9-1, you know, 90% female, 10% males. Not to say that if it was 100% males, there would be no bullying. There'd just be a lot of overt bullying. You know, we have a different type of bullies. Most guys, you know, I always say there's always a threat of violence. So we handle each other very straightforwardly. You know, give me your lunch money while I pound you into the ground, right? It's very, very straightforward. There's no subtleties involved. You know, we're dumb creatures. Men are pretty straightforward and simple. Women are much more complex. All right, I've learned that from all my exes and my daughters, and working alongside you guys. It's very complex. It's interesting sitting as a fly on the wall, charting away and listening to the cacophony in the background, across from me, in front of me, around the corner. They don't think I'm there, whatever. Or they ask my opinion even. So, you know, because I'm not a threat to them. Usually I'm not a threat to them in their perception. I'm never a threat, but you know, to their perception, because I'm older. If they know me, I'm older. The younger ones, or the ones that are newer, they don't know how old I am. Then they like keel over when they find out I'm 54. The bullying that I hear and I see is there. It's there. You know, whether actual or perceived, and I'll get into that a little later. More into that a little later. The covert bullying that's there is very difficult to prove. That's one. That's first and foremost. And you may never be able to prove it, even with my suggestion, my big suggestion in this video. You might never prove it. It might not even be there. It might be gaslighting, because gaslighting is a big part of it. You know, it's people that have been bullies and are bullies, you know, or have been bullied. We'll all attest to it. You've either been one side or the other. Some of us have been both sides, or accused of both sides. And again, I'll get into that later. Gaslighting is a big part of it, you know, because they hide behind it. Bullies hide behind it because they can't stand the light of day. You confront a bully, usually they'll back down. It's not always. Let's be honest. It's not always the case. Sometimes they'll back that stuff up, and then you got to be prepared to deal with that. And again, that's why males, are simple creatures, will back that up. You know, there's always a threat of violence. You know, so we handle each other with that tone of respect. Or if you don't, you get a pecking order, or you just tolerate the bullying, right? Whatever. I'm not saying tolerate the bullying. I'm just saying that is how we deal with it. Covert bullying, how do you deal with it though? You know, everybody talks about bullying. Yes, it's there. And that in itself is a way of dealing with it, because identification is the key. Validating it. having someone hear your voice, hear that there is a problem, to say, yes, I acknowledge your hurt feelings, I acknowledge the stress or duress that you're under. There's something soothing, or it's something, at least some camaraderie or some understanding of your plight. And that's a lot of how to deal with bullying, because if you're alone on an island, it makes it that much worse. We are social creatures. Being alone on an island is not good for us. Even though I'm an introvert and I don't like it, but I'm here on YouTube, right? Again, this is part of my self-therapy. What do I suggest for bullying then? How do you deal with it? Controversial, and it's not legal advice, and it's inadmissible in court. I will preface that, okay? I don't think there's any state that allows what I'm doing to be actual. But this is self-help. I'm talking about self-help for you. How to deal with bullying yourself, okay? How to validate it, how to understand it, and examine it. Self-examination, examination of others and the surroundings. Like I said, it's inadmissible. I think even the truth and evidence states it's got to be like an unusual circumstance, extreme circumstance. I don't condone retaliation, absolutely not. And again, I'll get into a lot of these points later on, and you'll see what I mean. And I practice what I preach, and that's what I'm talking about later on. I'll get to that. I suggest recording, self-recording, okay? Just record yourself. Put yourself under recording all the time if you have to, because then you can catch the background noise of what you're going through, okay? If there's bullying going on, and maybe it's not verbal, maybe it's not auditory, maybe it's visual, then you can describe it, or you can record it. We have these wonderful devices nowadays, computing power greater than the moon landings, at our fingertips, literally. We can record video, audio, you could do searches, you could do a lot of things, you could broadcast. There's a TV studio here, right? We have amazing technology. With it, you cannot publish this, okay? I'm publishing my own thing. You can publish your own things, but be careful if you include somebody else. Even this, I have to sign disclaimers from YouTube saying, you got no other people in this, or they're not using AI, I'm using idiot technology. You have to be aware of the legal consequences, guys. So I'm definitely not advocating you use it for any illegal purposes, because you can't. Let's just flat out say it. The courts won't admit it. HR won't even accept it. And you might get sued for it. So it is for your personal use, your own self-evaluation, your own self-help. If you want to share it with your therapist or your attorney or your priest, those people have either HIPAA or legal protections thereof to have a client, provider privilege there, attorney-client privilege, so on and so forth. So they're protected. You're protected in that arena. They're protected in that arena, because you don't want to be sharing it with the wrong person. Even if it's recorded, if you do this, I wouldn't show it. I wouldn't really show it to a manager or HR or anyone without an attorney's advice. Okay, your attorney will be the end person on that. And if you really take it to that point, you need to get an attorney. Always get an attorney. Whether you have a good attorney or a bad attorney, that's totally something else. Getting an attorney is one thing. Getting a good attorney is something else. But I would strongly suggest that, because first it's recording your life scenarios, okay? And if it happens to be that it catches the bullying in act, let it record. Don't be pointing to it. Don't escalate the situation. But recording it has a number of benefits to you. One, you can really see or hear what the actual interaction was. And if you listen to it a little later, it's kind of like writing something down, and then you sit it down and you come back to it in a few hours. You get to look at it almost in the third party point of view, or it's like, you give it to someone proofreading, like I said, an attorney or therapist, let them take a look at it as a third party point of view and say, yes, that's bullying, or no, that's not bullying, or yeah, I can see how it is bullying. Because a third person point of view, a true third person, not HR, not a manager, I don't believe those are anyone in third party. And that's why even your spouse or your partner, yes, there's pillow privilege there. There are bias, obviously, either one or the other. And you really want a third party, to really have a good judgment, objective, not judgment, but objective point of view. This will help at least validate or reinforce or reassure or, have some dialogue back and forth with your therapist or your attorney to say whether or not this really is bullying or not. And then you proceed from there. You still think it is, even though that's your right. No problems with that. That's your right, because you're the victim, you're the wrong party, you have rights. Don't get me wrong, the bully has rights too, but you're the victim here. You've got to protect yourself and advocate for yourself. Now, this video is very poignant, is very pertinent. Sorry, that's really, I guess that was a Freudian slip there. It's pertinent, it's poignant for me because I was accused of bullying recently, very recently. While I'm recording this video, off and on, like I said, I've done at least 10 reshoots of this video. I've been working on this for a couple months, just kind of tweaking with it because I've been doing some other videos in between, and I'm just like, it's a really hard topic. It's really difficult because people will interpret this as legal advice, and it's not. And absolutely, I'll reemphasize this a half dozen times or more in this video that it's not, because I don't get sued. I'm just telling you some self-help stuff, how to deal with it. Recording is what I think is the best way, so you can review your own actions and your own life, how you react to it. Then you can bring a third party into it, like, again, a very short list: therapist, doctor, or attorney, or maybe a priest or something like that. Someone very third party that's neutral, that will at least then look at the scenario and give you feedback, because validation is a big part of how to handle bullying, because bullying it's not you, it's the bully. So how it's like I said to someone recently, it's they're dealing with a loved one who probably needs to get help and medication or treatments. And I said to them, it's like, they were going to go on meds. The person I was advising, not their loved ones, but they were going to go on like antidepressants or something like that. And I said to them, I was like, that sucks, because that's like you taking chemo and hoping to cure their cancer. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. I'll tell you right now, right here, right now, that ain't going to work. And then when I voiced it like that, they said, "You're right." I said, "Yeah, because it's not you, it's them." Yeah, maybe you need to deal with the fallout of their chemo and radiation. That's true. Those are possibilities. But if you've got to protect yourself. But it's hard. They can't just walk away from their loved ones. This is not something. And believe me, I touch this base, home base, a lot closer than you guys know. Can't do that. But it's especially pertinent because, like I said, I was accused of bullying fairly recently, and ironically, even though I'm advising recording, ironically, the situation that I was under was being recorded. That's how the scenario started. Actually, somebody was doing FaceTime recording with their girlfriend. They're recording, and the bullier, the victim, was caught in the background, I guess. And they were like, hey, I don't want to be, and that wasn't the issue, by the way. That wasn't the issue. But they were like, hey, I don't want to do that. But it was in front of me. I knew all the people involved, and I was just standing there. I was waiting my turn, doing something, and they were like, and he goes, you don't want to be caught, do you? You're doing something. And then I took that little comment and I made a comment about child support and legal aspects, of that. And I was totally thinking of myself, because I have many kids from multiple wives, and I've had custody all throughout them. I've had, you want to say sole custody or primary custody. I was the residential custodial parent. I had all the authority. I was the custodial parent involved. Everybody else had visitation rights all through that. Not because I was super rich, not because I was super right or whatever. It's just that they didn't want to be parents. And I'll call them out on it. They don't care. They probably do care, but facts are facts. What do you want to say? You can interview the kids and ask them what they think. That's what it is. Okay, that's fine. I've actually had to pay child support. Even though I was the residential parent, even though I had custody, I've had to pay child support in almost every one of those scenarios because I'm the man. Okay? So when people tell me, hey, the system is not crooked, it is not biased, I say, you're a fucking liar. You don't know what you're talking about. I've actually lived it, and I've lived it under 3 different judges, 3 different scenarios, 3 different decades. All right? And I follow the judges involved. Some of them are on federal benches, and ironically, one of my attorneys actually was a partner with this. Oh, you know them? I was like, yeah, don't talk to me about them. They're biased. And he's like, what? Are you kidding me? I know them. I say, I know them too. You know them in a professional and personal sense. I know them in a strictly professional sense. They're biased. And I gave him an example. He's like, oh shit. I was like, look, that's okay. Water under the bridge 20 years ago, done, right? But it sticks in my craw that I had to pay child support even though I was a custodial parent in all those instances. It's to what it is. It's okay. I have beautiful children, a lovely family. I love them. That's great. I got us cheap. I had to pay that much money to have great kids. Very cheap. I basically got them for free, basically, right? But that was my comment, and that was what I was saying. But he didn't know that. The victim didn't know that, and he took it as a racial bullying, which I was like, yo, dude, if you know my background, I've got every race under the sun I've coupled with and I've had children with. So I was a little surprised, but my charge brought me to the side an hour or so later, I think. And he was very uncomfortable with the scenario because I had helped train that charge. And he's like, I feel very uncomfortable, kind of awkward saying this. And I said, well, spit it out. I was like, what's going on? What's the issue? No idea it was me. No idea what the heck the situation was. But then when he I was flabbergasted. I was like, are you serious? I was like, wow. No, it was an innocuous comment. But I could see, and I said this while our interaction, I said, I can see how it was taken wrong. But the scenario was recorded. I told him, I was like, it was recorded. So I'm not worried in that sense. I mean, I could see even recorded, like I said, it can be misinterpreted, and because it's misinterpreted because that's not my meaning. Because, let's say you meant to save a child and you ended up killing somebody by, doing something here, but you saved the child. That's what I was like, oh, I didn't know they were waiting for whatever, that cascade of events still caused that injury, right? So, I mean, it's not to say that he wasn't feeling bullied. He definitely has his feelings, and I said that. I said, look, and I told the charge, I said, no, you handled this correctly. You took me aside. We had a private talk, and I said, we're talking man to man. No problem. This is how I would have handled it exactly the same way. And there's nothing, you're in an awkward situation. The problem I had was, do you want me to approach the person, which I thought was inappropriate because I'm in a higher position of power. That's not good. And he said, you're right. And he said, that's why. He's like, do you want to do it? But then it becomes like, you're really butting heads, and I'm asking him to get officially involved and all that. So we actually asked an intermediary to go in, the person who was doing the recording. And I say, look, can you? And he was like, what? Were they upset about the food or something? Because there was food involved. There was like a spicy food and whatever. That was getting too deep into it and too much TMI. But I was like, no, this is what it was. He's like, yeah, I remember it. Yeah, okay. And he thought about it, and he agreed. He's like, yeah, I can see how that taken the wrong way. But that person and I knew each other. He knew some of my background. He's like, oh, he doesn't know you. I say, I know. We work well together, and we like each other. It's good, but he doesn't know me. He doesn't know the history, my history, and I don't know his history. And I might have hit a nerve on that. I might have, he might have been a child of that scenario, or a victim of that scenario, or he has maybe even a worse scenario than I did. So you don't know what the other side has. So that's why I say I'm validating the victim side, in the sense that you don't know and how they're feeling if you were the bully. And that's it. I mean, usually, listen to this, you shouldn't be the bully, right? I was actually inadvertently the bully. And I apologized to them. Later on, I after, cleared some of the air, I told him, I said, I was really physically nauseous, about it. And I said, I'm really sorry you took it that way. It was not meant to be. And I apologize. Most bullies won't do that, right? Or they'll do it very sincerely. So I was trying to be very sincere. I was very nauseous. I was physically nauseous from it. I told him, I'm saying, I'm really, really sorry. I don't ever, please don't think I do that. And I like to think all my coworkers and former coworkers will say that. It was like, that's the last thing I would have said, thought from Ray. Because I practice what I preach, in the sense, and sometimes I take big hits for it. I take monetary big hits or what have you, because I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. And I pay that bill because that's what I was taught to do. That's through American, TV society land, That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be up front. You're supposed to be a stand-up guy. You're supposed to do this stuff. Have I made mistakes? Sure, yeah. I've done stuff that I'm not happy with, not proud of. But you have to pay that price sooner or later. That's why I believe it is what it is. So be it. What can I do? I made a promise. You stick with it. It sucks. Stick with it. The scenario, I was the bully, and what can I do? I said, I'm really sorry. All I can do is say, I'm sorry. I don't know, whatever. He was at that point, and I don't know how he really interpreted it. I don't know the gentleman. But he said, nah, it's okay. We're cool. We're chill. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. If you don't want to work with me, I totally understand it. I won't take any offense to it. No, none whatsoever. I mean, this is a guy who wanted to work with me. He was like really happy that I came back, because I get in, I literally roll up my sleeves and get in there with the techs and with the other nurses, and not afraid, and I don't shirk hard work, because I've done every one of those roles. And he and I had respect. He said, no, I like working with you, because you don't shirk away. But I'm sure this turned his world a little upside down to possibly think I was bullying him. I really feel badly on it. That's why I can speak on both ends. I've been bullied, and I've been accused of bullying. So I don't, whether, again, I wasn't a bully. I didn't mean to be a bully, but if my actions and my comments resulted in that, it still did it. And that's where I say to him and to the charge, I say, look, hey, if you guys want to escalate it, that's your right, his right. Let's, I don't have a problem with that. I have to fall on my sword and take the lumps like a man. I can only say, I'm very sorry. This is not what I meant to do. And it's recorded, so great. At least you guys can see it in an objective view. And that goes back to my original comment and suggestion on this video, is recording yourself has a benefit there. Especially if, it shows the interactions or how you're reacting. It gives a third party point of view. 30 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to do it very easily. At least you would need police and FBI involvement, right? Here you could do it with iPhone involvement, Android involvement. It's no big deal, right? But it is a big deal legally. You can't use it for anything. You know, even in this scenario what I'm talking about, I couldn't use it for anything. I would have to ask permission. Could I hear what you happen to record? I just want to do that. But HR wouldn't have used it. But like I said to the charge, I said, it was recorded. I'm not afraid of what I said. It wasn't overt, but could it be misconstrued? Yeah, of course. And that's what you have to be, unfortunately, aware of these days, that it might be falling in that kind of category. But that's a rabbit hole for another day. But that's my that's my underlying suggestion for you guys for how to deal with bullying. First and foremost is record yourself and see how that plays out, in the sense of like how you're reacting, how the interaction occurred. Then I strongly suggest going to a therapist and getting some outside input that is protected, an attorney or a therapist. First a therapist, I would say that's the best thing, because then they can really objectively say, yeah, that's bullying, that's so over, or at the very least validate your feelings of that. Because like I said, this scenario that I was in, his feelings validated, regardless of how I really meant it. He was hurt, his feelings were hurt, and that's not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable to me. I was nauseous from it. And I apologize because I didn't mean to. But you know, you could be running across the field and slam into some little kid and knock him over. You feel bad. As I was going for the pass, he was in the way. What are you gonna do, right? It's gonna happen. You know, it might happen. You know, it's not gonna happen, but it might happen. But it's still, you cause injury. You feel badly. You know, in that scenario, I caused emotional injury, and wasn't anything significant. It was intentional, definitely not intentional, but you know, I apologize to the guy. You know, I mean, you know, I could be yelling at the top of my lungs and cause emotional distress to other people, and I have. And I'm like, I was in my office. How did you guys even hear that? You know, they're like, yeah, they heard it. You know, I was like, they realized I wasn't talking about them, right? And they're like, oh yeah, they know. They just didn't like the loud noise. I was like, it's like they're like my cats, sensitive to loud noises, right? But anyway, sorry for the long video. I think it's gonna have to post it as is, because it's a very difficult topic to talk about, and it's extremely so because of my recommendation, and because I actually just lived through a scenario of this. But again, any questions, comments, critiques, you know, you guys think I'm full of bullshit, you think I'm the gospel. I don't, you know, not that I don't mind either way. You just let me know. It's okay. You know, I like the feedback. It's good to have this banter, I think. It gets me the best feedback from what you guys are thinking, what you guys need. Sometimes it's just me rambling, and like this, it's a half hour of me rambling. You know, I doubt anybody got to this point. But good luck. Anyway.